Your body is not waking you up at 3 a.m. by accident. Somewhere deep inside your brain, an emergency signal is firing while you sleep, flooding your bloodstream with cortisol, snapping your heart awake, and convincing your nervous system that something is wrong, even when your house is silent. And what researchers discovered about the real trigger behind these night wakings changes everything. Because for millions of exhausted adults, the problem may not be sleep at all. If you're serious about taking better care of your health, make sure you subscribe. I share simple, practical advice designed especially for seniors. And feel free to leave a comment telling me where you're watching from. I appreciate every one of you. Let's get back to it. Something is happening inside your body at night that nobody warned you about. Not during the day, not at sunset, but in the dead quiet of the early morning hours, somewhere between 2 and 4 a.m.
A biological alarm goes off inside you, silent, invisible, and completely uninvited. You didn't set it, but your body did. If you've been waking at the same hour, night after night, heart thumping, mind suddenly alert, staring at a ceiling that offers you nothing, I need you to understand something that most physicians never take the time to explain. That wake up is not random. It is not simply poor sleep. It is not aging, and it is absolutely not something you should keep quietly tolerating. What may be happening inside your body during those moments is a stress hormone called cortisol firing at completely the wrong time. Cortisol is designed to rise in the morning. It's the signal that tells every cell in your body that it's time to wake up, stand up, and face the day. Under healthy conditions, it stays low and quiet throughout the night, while melatonin keeps your brain anchored in sleep. But here is where it gets serious. In many adults, particularly those dealing with chronic stress, blood sugar instability, or years of disrupted rest, that cortisol rhythm becomes corrupted. Instead of waiting for sunrise, it begins surging in the middle of the night. And when cortisol rises while you're still in bed, your nervous system responds the only way it knows how. It wakes you up. Racing heart, sudden warmth, a mind that won't quiet down, anxious thoughts arriving from nowhere. That is not insomnia in the traditional sense. That is your body's internal emergency system activating at the wrong hour and treating the stillness of your bedroom like a threat it needs to respond to. Research published out of the University of Chicago found that even short periods of fragmented sleep can elevate evening cortisol and disrupt the body's ability to regulate blood glucose, creating a feedback loop where poor sleep produces more cortisol, and more cortisol produces worse sleep night after night, month after month. And the longer this continues, the wider the damage spreads. Memory, mood, immunity, cardiovascular health, cellular aging. None of these systems are spared when the body spends its nights in a state of quiet biological emergency. I'm Dr. James Cross, and what I'm going to walk you through today are several overlooked nighttime compounds, including one simple tablespoon remedy that researchers believe may help quiet the stress response, support deeper sleep, and help your nervous system remember what it actually feels like to rest. One of these compounds works in a way that will completely change how you think about nighttime wake-ups, and it is not what you expect. Your body is not broken. That is the first thing I want you to hear and genuinely believe before we go any further. Because one of the most damaging things that happens to people dealing with chronic sleep disruption is that they begin to turn against themselves. They lie awake at 2 in the morning, blaming their own biology, convinced that something inside them is fundamentally wrong. But what if the opposite were true? What if your body was waking you up on purpose, not to punish you, but to protect you? Here is what the science actually shows. Deep inside your brain sits a structure called the hypothalamus. It runs your body's most critical survival functions around the clock: temperature, hunger, hormone release, and threat detection. And it never fully sleeps. Even while you're unconscious, your hypothalamus is scanning, monitoring, watching for signals that suggest danger. Under normal conditions, this system works beautifully. Cortisol stays low, melatonin holds steady, and your nervous system drifts through its natural sleep cycles without interruption. But chronic stress changes that equation entirely. When the body has been under prolonged pressure, whether from emotional strain, physical exhaustion, unresolved anxiety, or years of poor sleep, the hypothalamus begins recalibrating its threat threshold. It becomes, in the language of researchers, hypervigilant. It starts interpreting ordinary nighttime stillness as suspicious, and it begins activating your sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight response, at hours when it has absolutely no business doing so. This is not a character flaw. This is survival biology operating outside its intended context. A 2019 review published in the journal Frontiers in Psychiatry noted that chronic stress is strongly associated with dysregulation of the HPA axis, the hormonal pathway that governs cortisol release, leading to abnormal cortisol patterns that can severely fragment nighttime sleep architecture. In plain language, prolonged stress teaches your body to stay alert even when you're unconscious. And here is the part most people never hear. The nervous system does not distinguish between emotional stress and physical stress. It does not know the difference between a difficult year at work and a genuine physical emergency. All it recognizes is the signal. And if that signal has been arriving consistently day after day, month after month, the system begins to expect danger even when none exists. That midnight wake up, that sudden alertness at 3 a.m., that inability to sink back into sleep, no matter how exhausted you feel. These are not signs of weakness. They are the footprints of a nervous system that has been quietly running on high alert for far too long. The good news is this: what has been learned can be unlearned. But first, you need to understand the specific biological triggers that are silently keeping that alarm armed even while you sleep. And one of the most surprising ones involves your blood sugar. Most people have never once connected their blood sugar to their sleep. They think of glucose as a daytime concern, something to manage around meals, something diabetics monitor, something that belongs to the waking hours. But what research is revealing is that what happens to your blood sugar while you sleep may be one of the most underestimated drivers of nighttime waking in adults over 40. And your body has a very specific, very urgent reason for waking you up when it detects a problem. Here is the biology you need to understand. Your brain is the most metabolically demanding organ in your body. It accounts for roughly 20% of your total energy consumption. And unlike your muscles, it cannot store significant amounts of fuel on its own. It depends almost entirely on a steady supply of glucose delivered through the bloodstream around the clock, including every hour you spend asleep. Under healthy conditions, the liver manages this beautifully overnight. It releases stored glucose gradually, maintaining stable blood sugar levels while you sleep, keeping the brain quietly fueled without any disruption to your rest. But when that system is compromised through chronic stress, poor diet, insulin resistance, or years of fragmented sleep, nighttime blood sugar can become unstable. It drops sometimes sharply, and when the brain detects that its fuel supply is falling, it does not politely wait for morning. It triggers a hormonal emergency response. Cortisol surges, adrenaline follows, and within minutes, your heart is racing.